Yeah.
Yeah. you talk on the book, it's an actress here.
Oh my God. Nope.
It's kind of like some of
It's
the
not,
stuff
it's not actually not about me. Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, good. I figured that. Yeah, this was.
She was absolutely. I'm not a child person, she's considered.
Turn around.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, it's everybody, every time I said, well, maybe so. So. Yes, how you doing? Good, how are you? Thanksgiving all set up?
I think so.
All right, just about ready to launch. Yeah.
I'm looking for a good hard loaf olive bread. I'm missing that from my emails. Anybody knows where to find one? That's my last.
I think Tuscany, maybe, or maybe,
Olive.
maybe Venice.
For my, yeah,
Olive
my
oil?
stuffing. A recipe. Oh, God, no, to buy. No, it's in starter. I
There's
know.
Trader Joe's in Issaquah, that might be an option.
Ready? Okay, welcome to the Ellensburg City Council meeting of November 21st. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Wynn. Thank you. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Oshaw. Present. Elliott.
Here.
Goodlow. Here. Lilquist.
Here.
David Miller.
Here.
Monica Miller.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
We have no proclamations and no awards. So we are at item 4 already for the agenda.
Madam Mayor, move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as well.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we are at item 6A, which is presentation by the Ellensburg Downtown Association. That
So the-
first part is
So we've heard that.
efficient, but
The night is young.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Madam Mayor, City Council members and guests, thank you so much for having us here tonight. I want to introduce myself. I'm Brenda DeVore, the Ellensburg Downtown Association Executive Director. And I also have with me tonight Kelly Vandenberg, our Board President, and Teresa Chanas. She is our Community Engagement Specialist. And then we have Katie Holm, a brand new addition to our team, who is our Event and Marketing Coordinator. So if you could raise your hand and just give them a wave, that'd be great. They know who you are. All right. And before I move on, does everyone know that we have moved our office? Most of you are nodding your heads. Okay, great. If you have not had a chance to come visit us, we'd love to have you stop in. We're located right across the street from the post office and the History Museum. So we have a brand new space. We have room for public meetings, for pop-up vendors, for some events that we can do on our own, and just have a lot more space than we did in our previous location. And I hope you all noticed the snowflakes went up. So they are going to be stored in our office. We have space that we don't have to spend money on storage anymore. So that's another plus. Okay, so I wanted to get into our Main Street presentation and a little bit of excitement that's happened in 2022 and then forward thinking into 2023. So I'm going to have us start with a video here to introduce you to some Main Street.
At Main Street, we get to make magic for our community, but with our community. We get to decorate the streets for Christmas. We get to help that quiet, silent dream of a new business owner start something amazing. We get to take these old buildings that might be dilapidated and forgotten and give them new life and a new purpose and have them be a part of the next generation's story and the relationship of people to the place where they're at. But it also makes them a part of a larger concept of place.
What can I do along with everybody else to try and attract more people to come downtown? Not just to shop at my store, but to shop downtown. If they come downtown, we all win. That's the name of the game.
Main Street to me begins and ends with people and the community that they create. We become the heart of our community because it is where the care is centered. And that is so, so important.
When people have that sense of community, they're more empowered to realize their dreams. They feel safe to experiment, to be the better version of themselves.
That's what that downtown is. It's where we come together, where we talk, where we engage, where we dialogue with each other, where you see your old friends, you're meeting new friends.
We think of our downtown as actually the living room of our family home. And that is the place where we all come together, share experiences, build traditions, and celebrate memories.
I love the word community because right in the middle of community is the word unity. And I think that's what Main Street is. In all our communities, that Main Street is that unity that everyone looks to, goes to. It holds the history, but it holds the heart in our communities.
And one of the things that really endeared me to my community personally was how many people expressed their love of downtown. Some people that have lived there their whole lives, some people that have moved away and came back, some people that were from India, Africa, Thailand, Louisiana, who set their business up in our downtown.
How do I get to a place where all the people who are walking around within the community, that you get to know them on a first name basis, that you see them, you know, they have kids, if they do, if they don't, you know, their last job, you become a part, it's like a family. I want to be in the business where I can say hello and hi and bye. I want to be that guy. You know, being able to take your own creation with your thoughts, with your actions, your hands, and see that materialize and see the smile and the reaction that you get. It's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life.
We started as kind of a response to the local malls that came and kind of decimated our downtowns. Through these past 40 years, our downtown, our Main Street communities have really become that shopping experience. They've really come full circle. Our downtowns are really the heart and soul, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
If we don't step in and do something to preserve our downtown, what's going to be left in 15 to 20 years from now with all of these brick historical buildings?
The thing I like the most is not having to reinvent the wheel, that these programs of all different sizes and all different communities have worked. And so you can kind of take a little bit here or take a little bit there to make it fit for your own community.
Main Street offers a framework and really a diagnostic tool for the health of your downtown. We have so many creative, innovative partners within our community. We're pulling them together. We're leveraging their talents and we're bringing out the best in them. And that really highlights for our community what we are, who we are as a downtown. And that's why I love it.
The power of goodwill out into the community changes everything.
What is it that we can do collectively to promote the organization that basically is doing a lot or wants to do a lot to put us together on the same pedestal? I want to support it. Absolutely. It's how we can see eye to eye and say, we are in it together. It is all about how you can collectively thrive. And that's what I want to do.
Okay. So I show you this video for a couple of reasons. One is this is one of the 36, well, we're one of the 36 cities.
If you're a homeowner in Washington and you're still paying for electricity.
We're one of the 36 cities, Main Street cities.
And I've got some big
state, and about, I would say 6 of them were featured in this video. We are going to create and have already started creating a video like this for Ellensburg. So we will be able to launch that in 2023, which we're very excited about, bringing tourism and just excitement and showcasing our beautiful downtown. So we're excited to bring that to you next year. Okay. So a little bit about Main Street. Long-term objectives. the things that we're seeing up here on this particular slide are from Main Street itself. And these are sort of the basis of what we do. And how do I get to the next slide? Spacebar is not working here. We're good? Okay, great. We have a board of directors. We currently have 2 places available on our board. We're specifically looking for a treasurer. So if you have anyone that you know that might want to fill that space, we really would appreciate that introduction. We have been actively fundraising. As you know, we are supported by our service contract with you. We very much appreciate the support of the city of Ellensburg, but we also are supported through our sponsorship program and through our Main Street B&O tax program. So currently we have almost $100,000 raised for this year. Ellensburg has $213,333.33 available to it through this program. We are actively working to fill the gap and get all of that money and keep all of those funds here in Ellensburg, but we do need local businesses to pledge. So if it's very simple to do, it takes about 10 minutes or less on the Department of Revenue's website. So if you know any businesses that are not currently taking part in this program, it is a 75% tax credit to them the following year. And so it's a very win-win program. There really isn't any reason not to do it. All you're doing is diverting your B&O tax from Olympia right into Ellensburg, and it's run through the Downtown Association. So for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with this program, we have step-by-step instructions on our website. So it's very easy to get into that program and to pledge. Okay, these are our 2022 Main Street tax credit contributors. I wanted to point out that you do not have to be a local Ellensburg-based business to contribute to this program. A good example of that is the Goodfellow Brothers. They're located in Wenatchee, and they were our largest donor in 2021 that funded our 2022 work plan. So they chose to donate to Ellensburg because they have many students that come out of the CWU construction management program that they employ. And so they feel like they want to support the place that's, bringing them their future employees. Okay, committee overview. So we are built on the Main Street platform of 4 committees. So our economic vitality, promotion, outreach, and design committees. We have all 4 of those committees working very hard to bring the 2022 strategic plan into fruition. And they're currently planning their next year plan. We just had our board retreat and all committee member or chairs were present. So they're now working on their plan for next year. So a few accomplishments and highlights from this year. Coordinated and watered the downtown planners. You probably have noticed the planners look better, I think, this year than they have in the last few years. And we've really worked hard with that community to make sure that they look vibrant. And we've done plantings that will last throughout this winter and into next season. So they should not be empty. They should be looking beautiful all year long. Also, a downtown mural restoration project is underway. We have our wonderful 100th year rodeo next year. There's 3 rodeo centric murals that have been designated, and we have a workforce working, or a task force working with several different community entities to make sure that those are restored for next year. So many volunteers came to help with our downtown cleanups this year. We had 2, and we also had a planting day. Okay. Outreach committee, they had coordinated a volunteer fair this year. This is the first that we know of for the EDA. We had over 21 nonprofits come together in one room where they could all recruit volunteers from the general public that came. So it was like speed dating for nonprofits. It was really fun, very effective, and we just held the second one at the CWU campus. What else is on here that I want to highlight? We've also had an annual meeting that we do in February in conjunction with that volunteer fair, which we all would love to have you come and join us. At that particular meeting, we do honor our downtown award winners for different categories. There's 6 categories that we award, and it is also our public annual meeting. This year, we had something pretty new and fun in our event mix called the Historic Pub Crawl, and that was met with tremendous success. It was held in May for the National Historic Preservation Month, It sold out in less than 24 hours. And we had held a second one in October, which sold out in an hour and a half. So those are two new events that are partnering with the History Museum. Very, very successful, and definitely brings a light to the History Museum, which we're all, wanting to bring some more attention to them. So it was very successful. We loved it. We are working on updating a downtown welcome packet. So if you want to open a business in Ellensburg, here's the tools, here's the steps, here's who you need to contact. Just a one-stop shop, making it really easy. Economic Vitality Committee, they created a partnership with the Kittitas County Chamber for a couple things this year. One, for some business planning classes, but the other one is the night market. How many of you attended the night market last holiday? I don't know if you all stopped by, but it was a complete success. Full. We had no extra room. We outgrew the space at Guard. So this year it's going to be at Blue Rock, and we are partnering with the chamber on this. So it was held all summer long, and now it's going to be again this holiday season starting on the 30th. The promotions committee has been very busy helping us with our events. We had a very robust event calendar, which I'll show you here in a moment. But one of the things they really focused on was building stronger bonds with CWU and CW students, and also with our rodeo folks. And so an example of their work is we had a very successful Wildcat weekend, a welcome week. We had a beautiful display in our window for all folks to walk by and see, of merchandise and just, CWU swag. And we just really painted the town red. So hoping to make that an annual tradition. Okay, next thing, EDA events. This was a very robust year for events. And I think having been in a pandemic, it was important for people to get outside, connect, get together. And before my time here, the EDA board and staff had created a very large event calendar just to have that, that happen. So we've looked at it for this coming year, and we're going to be giving some of our events away to other nonprofits, other organizations that can benefit from these events. And we're going to focus on the events that we feel are important for us to retain, and also create some new programming in place of some of the other things that we did in the past. So moving into our 2023 projects and planning, we have, of course, the mural restoration project. And that is a project that's going to be citywide, but again, beginning on those 3 murals I mentioned earlier. And then the Ellensburg Community Arts strategic plan. I think you're pretty aware of that, that work that's been going on all year. And we are going to be taking that to a level of becoming a cultural arts district. Continued partnership with the rodeo and CWU for the 100th anniversary. We're opening it up to our downtown businesses for ideas and ways to connect rodeo to our downtown. We're expanding our business fund program. We have just awarded 6 $1,000 grants to 6 businesses. And that's the second time we've been able to do that through our partnerships, and we will continue to do that for next year. We're looking at performing a night audit just to, do an audit on safety, crime, ADA accessibility in downtown, making sure that we're accessible for all people, all folks. And then also meeting space inventory lists. We know this can bring business to downtown. This can bring tourism. So we're developing on our website a place that you can actually look and see what downtown meeting spaces we have. Pine Street revitalization. I think you're probably familiar with the city mural that was on our work plan for this year. That space has been identified on the side of the Blue Rock. And that is the city mural that is part of the National Tourism website. And those murals become a modern day postcard with thousands and thousands of tourists. They get on the website, see where these are located, and we say, get off the freeway, go the extra mile and come see this mural. So we're very excited about that, and that'll be coming hopefully into fruition for next year. We are working on a first for our downtown, and that's solar building and tree lighting. So we are working with Puget Sound Energy, Ellensburg Solar to have our building lighting and tree lighting be powered by solar. And we're going to begin that project on Pine Street. Some other things that we would love to see is some signage at the end of our I-90 interchanges. So go the extra mile is kind of our tagline, see our downtown. We still continue to hear people that visit us and say, my gosh, I did not know you had such a beautiful downtown. So that is something we'd love to see happen at our front doors. Downtown property tour, we're going to be doing some tours of our open spaces, both residential and commercial. And then you can look forward to some brighter lit snowflakes for next year. Our snowflakes are looking a little dim. So we have a relamping plan for the spring when those come down. So they'll go up next year much brighter than what you're seeing now. And lastly, the downtown kiosks are a result of some needs for signage. We know that we're going to be enjoying a new park downtown, but in the meantime, we want to make sure people know where to go and how to navigate through our downtown. So we're developing some mobile kiosks that will be available to be moved as needed in the downtown area. Okay, is there any questions about our projects and planning for 2023? Or anything I've shared so far? Yes.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I did have a question on your list. I was wondering, and I appreciate the work on the planters. I have an office downtown, so I get to see that every day. But I had a similar question about the garbage cans. And we know that they are not wearing very well as they were originally thought to. They're rusting and they're peeling and they're looking pretty sorry. And they don't seem to want to stay closed. And I just wondered if that's something that's on your radar as far as a capital project.
That's a great point. The maintenance of those particular items would fall under our planter maintenance as well. And we have identified a company. I think you probably know that our company that supplied those is no longer in Ellensburg. They're now in Bozeman, Montana. But we do have a local welder that's been identified to help us with some improvements. So that'll be on our design committee's radar to see what the needs are in that area. Yes.
Thank you.
So completed some meetings with DOT related to the Vantage Bridge closure. It'll be slated along with the work that's going to go on in Easton for 7 years. They're talking upwards of 50-mile backups, which puts Ellensburg squarely inside the backup either direction. And I'm just wondering, as we approach summer, if there's some things we can do from a business perspective to encourage people to take that opportunity, get off the road, do some things that are constructive during those backups, not just sit on the road and be angry.
That's a great point. That's something we'll definitely take note of. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but go the extra mile.
35 from Easton, 27 from Vantage. So we're inside the.
Okay, well, that could be very beneficial for us. Yeah, we'll definitely put that on our list of things to discuss for this year. Any other questions? Okay. This is our event calendar for this year. I did bring some paper copies of this. It is on our website. I did want to also add that we have a brand new website in addition to our new office space. So I encourage you to jump on there and take a look. But we have a very robust calendar for next year. And you'll see coming back the Teddy Bear Tea, which is happening December 3rd this year. We are bringing that back. So that's on our calendar for next year as well. That was something that was missed by our community. Okay. And that concludes our presentation. So any other questions for us?
Just thanks for everything that you've done to bring the energy back downtown post-pandemic. I know you have a really hardworking group of board members and volunteers, and we, downtown see them hustling all the time and really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will pass that on. Yeah. Or we could not do what we do without our volunteer pool, that's for sure. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. The item is citizen comment on non-agenda issues. Is there anyone signed up? Mr. Kelleher. So comments must concern city's business or a matter over which the council has control, but not on the agenda tonight. So please state your name and address and whether you're representing yourself or others, and you will have 3 minutes. And that little timer there is already clicking down.
Thank you. Pat Kelleher, 6530 Wilson Creek Road, and I'm speaking for myself. I'd like to bring to your attention access to our parks and specifically ADA access. And the thing that I want to address is the sanitation issues. And a little survey of the sanitation situation in the parks. At Memorial Pool, all season, you have a flush toilet. At Unity Park, you have no facilities, no ADA access. Reed Park, you have no facilities, no ADA access. Kleinberg, no facilities, no ADA access. Memorial Park, right now, the restroom's closed. Kiwanis Park, the restroom's closed. Irene Reinhardt, I was pleased to find over the weekend, I don't know if it was the case, but the vault toilet, one of the two was open. The mobile toilet in the parking lot is just terrible. No ADA access, and it's just terrible. What it was really surprising in my survey was Paul Rogers Park, which has a vault toilet. Clean, open, ready to use. And that's been my experience with vault toilets. They really set off a recreation site. They say you're here to stay. You know, we don't close when it gets a little chilly, and we're afraid about our pipes and, oh, got to blow that out, and we'll just lock the door and keep everybody locked out with no access. You contrast the vault toilet and I encourage you to go out there and see it at Paul Rogers Park and compare it to the only handicap mobile toilet that you have at, is it McElroy Park? And just which one would you like to use today? And I'd like some feedback on that. You know, what was your experience? Vault toilets are cheap. They're easy to maintain. They're easy to clean. What people are looking for is to fill a need. They're not looking to take a shower there. They're not looking to, it's where you take your kid instead of sending them to the tree. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelleher. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council on an item over which we have control but is not on the agenda this evening? Anyone in the audience? Anyone? I see no hands raised online. So we will move on to business requiring public hearings. In the first hearing, I have to read the script. I know you get bored with it. Purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading of ordinance 4900 for the 2023-2024 biennial budget. The public hearing is now open. I ask your cooperation with the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize a request to testify by anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you're connected by telephone and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you're invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Please speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report?
Good
Mr.
evening.
Bassett.
Madam Mayor and Council, I'm Keith Bassett with the city's Finance Department. The proposed 2023-2024 biennial budget ordinance has been prepared for public hearing and council consideration of first reading. The proposed budget provides expenditure authority to maintain the city's operations and infrastructure and makes targeted investments to address priorities identified in the council strategic vision and maintains the the city's sound financial position, including preserving reserve levels as required by city financial policies. The budget before you is a product of disciplined and public process. Before the current public hearing, City Council has held public hearings for the purpose of receiving public comment on the 2023 revenue sources, including consideration of possible increases in property tax revenues at the October 3rd regular meeting, and 2 public hearings at the November 7th regular meeting. 1 to take comment on the proposed 2023 property tax levy ordinance, and 1 to take public comment on the proposed 2023-2024 biennial budget as presented by the city manager. I'm not going to go into the same level of depth as presented at your last public hearing on the 2023-2024 biennial budget, but I wanted to briefly discuss a few items this evening. Total available resources anticipated for 2023, specifically beginning fund balance and anticipated revenues, are forecasted 5.05% below the adopted 2022 budget level. Total available resources anticipated for 2024 are 11.28% below the 2023 forecast level. However, 2022 budgeted anticipated resources include significant federal COVID-19 response dollars and bond funds and accumulated reserves for capital replacement in utility infrastructure. These designated resources are anticipated to be spent in the first year of the biennium. Conservative financial forecasting, prudent management, and regular ongoing financial monitoring, analysis, and oversight, including quarterly reports to the council, helps ensure sustainable resource use across the city's funds. Part of the city manager's presentation included discussion of the city's financial toolbox, the various implements which are available to balance the budget. The budget before you, in fact, the city's overall financial management practices and procedures are designed to use small adjustments and prudent decision-making to position the city financially to meet the city's priorities. This includes investments in utility infrastructure and operations supported with rates developed through the methodical cost of service analysis, rate setting process for the utilities, and pursuing opportunities to fund investments in park and recreation facilities. Budget enhancements beyond the status quo are identified separately as part of the city's budget development process. And requests are developed within each of the city's operating departments, evaluated in context of the city's entire operations and infrastructure needs, and aligned with items and initiatives by the city manager. The 2023-2024 biennial budget expands capacity and aligns resources with the council's strategic vision 2023-2028 through enhancements targeting housing affordability, economic vitality, a safe and inclusive community, energy and resource management, and sustainable infrastructure. A detailed breakdown of the budget by fund, the list of enhancements and capital projects, and budgeted FTE are included in the agenda report beginning on page 88. Staff recommends conducting first reading of ordinance 4901 at the conclusion of the public hearing, and be pleased to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Does anyone from the public wish to make comments on this matter? If so, each person will have the opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak about the budget? Mr. Kelleher.
Pat Kelleher, 6530 Wilson Creek Road. Going through the budget, I can't see what's spent is the plan on parks broken down to a level that would be of interest to a resident. I do not believe that Reed Park has any funding appropriated, although a master plan is under active review. One of the interesting conversations I've had with a neighbor that lives in that area is, yes, I've been going to those meetings for 20 years. Been to City Hall many times. What do you think of the new plan? Yep. Been there before, talked to people. So is this going to be another, hey, let's get this great plan, or are you going to put some money against it? When the, I guess there was no bid for the Whitfield Triangle, to my understanding. But even when that resolution was passed, the Parks and Recreation Commission recommended to you to amend the resolution to use those funds for the funding implementation of the master plan, and you declined to adopt your Recreation Commission's recommendation. So zero goose egg, 20 years going to 21 to 22 to 23. I can't tell in the budget and what's in this packet, if there's any funding there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone online who would like to speak to this matter? Seeing no one, council, do you have any questions of the staff or public? Seeing none, the public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Quick question for reference. Are we talking ordinance 4900 or 4901?
It's 4900.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I move first reading of ordinance 4900.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4900, the 2023-2024 biennial budget ordinance. Discussion? Was there a second?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to say anything about that?
Can you clarify what happens next? For this first reading.
First reading, and then at our next meeting, we will have second reading and adoption.
Okay. So there's
It'll
still
be before
opportunity
us.
for public comment between now and then.
Yes, there is. And to have any of your questions answered. So if there is no further comment, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Two will vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, adopting the 2023-2024 biennial budget for the City of Ellensburg, Washington.
We are now on page 101. And this is another public hearing, so another script. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the City Council to consider first reading of ordinance 4901, which would impose an additional 1/4% real estate excise tax. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by telephone, and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you're invited to speak, please begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report? Mr. Bass again.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor and Council. Again, I'm Keith Bassett with the city's Finance Department. The proposed ordinance would levy an additional excise tax of 1/4% on real estate sales, generally restricted by state law to be used for capital purposes listed in the city's capital facilities plan, part of the city's comprehensive plan. The city currently imposes a 1/4% tax on real estate sales, the so-called REIT 1. This proposed additional levy would be so-called REIT 2. Use of the proposed additional tax revenue is somewhat more restrictive than the existing tax. And as proposed in the 2023-2024 biennial budget ordinance, this additional revenue develops a dedicated funding source for investments in parks and recreational capital facilities. Although by no means providing full funding, the additional resources would be available to fund a portion of the over $31 million of investments identified in the city's 6-year comprehensive parks and recreation capital facilities plan. And that level exceeds the current level of allocated general fund resources or anticipated park impact fee revenues. At your November 7th study session, staff presented revenue options available to fund community cultural and recreational facilities, of which REIT 2 is identified as an option. And at your November 7th regular council meeting, you conducted a public hearing on the preliminary budget, which included collection and expenditure of the additional 1/4% real estate excise tax. Real estate excise taxes are a highly variable revenue source dependent on the volume of sales in addition to the property values. Approximately $380,000 is forecast to be collected annually in 2023 and 2024 if the tax is imposed. Collection and expenditure of the REIT $2 is included in the proposed 2023-2024 biennial budget. Staff recommends conducting first reading of ordinance 4901 at the conclusion of the public hearing. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Does anyone in the public wish to make comments on this matter? If so, each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had the opportunity to speak. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak? And is anyone online? I see no hands raised. So does the staff have anything to add? So council, do you have questions of the staff or the public? Mr. Miller.
Just one quick question for staff. And I should know this, but can you clarify if this the REIT 2 has an expiration, or is it open-ended? In other words, is it authorized for a specific period of time, or do we have to reauthorize it?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Miller, it is a ongoing revenue source.
Okay, thank you.
And can I just ask, is it all real estate, commercial, residential, all real estate sales?
There are limited exceptions in state law. I'm not an expert on each and every one of them, but it's generally all sales.
Anyone else? The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Madam Mayor, I move first reading of ordinance 49.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4901, the additional 1/4% on the real estate excise tax. Discussion? Does the maker of the motion wish to speak to the motion?
Well, I'm just, I'm happy that we're doing this and it's becoming a dedicated funding for our parks and facilities. It's something that we need for a long, long time. And it'll be an important source of revenue as we move forward.
I was going to say the same thing. We've struggled as long as I've been on the council, and probably longer, to support our parks and rec system. This is as was outlined in the presentation, this is a relatively small amount of money, but it will make a difference in the capital improvement side. So I think it's we'll definitely see some significant benefits.
Anyone else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I too will vote aye opposed. That motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to chapter 2.25 real estate excise tax and amending sections 2.25.100, 2.25.120, and 2.25160 of the Ellensburg City Code, thereby imposing an additional 0.25% real estate excise tax.
Okay, we are on page 106. And this is the ad valorem property tax levy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Again, I'm Keith Bassett from the city's finance department. The ordinance before you for second reading and adoption reflects the 2023 levy for property taxes to be collected in 2023 for municipal purposes. Tax revenues fund approximately 69% of the general fund budget, and property tax alone accounts for 17% of the general fund budget. This city is limited to a 1% increase in property tax levy amount by state law, and that's the maximum. And the inflation rate used to determine the rate actually came in at 6.457%. And known cost escalators in the city's 2023 budget includes a 15.88% increase for EMS services, 30.46% increase for KitCom dispatching costs, 8.66% increase to minimum wage, and an anticipated new $75,000 expenditure for public defender services. The proposed 2023 budget includes the 1% increase to the property tax levy amount. And council has held a public hearing on October 3rd to consider proposed 2023 revenue sources, including property tax, and a public hearing on November 7th to consider possible increases in property tax revenue for 2023. Staff recommends conducting second reading and adoption of ordinance 4899. And I would be delighted to answer any of your questions.
Council, do you have questions for Mr. Bassett? You have a motion for us.
Madam Mayor, I move second reading adoption ordinance 4899.
Second.
Motion and second for second reading and adoption of ordinance 4899, establishing the ad valorem property tax levy for 2023. Discussion? All in favor?
I'll do roll call.
I forgot to ask for public comment, but there's no one. No one has their hand raised either.
All right. Beauchamp.
Aye.
Elliott,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
David Miller,
Aye.
Monica Miller,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Lilquist.
Yes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, levying property taxes for the City of Ellensburg for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023 on all property in said city, which is subject to taxation for the purpose of paying sufficient revenue to carry on general operations, recognize voter approved levies, and pay debt service obligations of said city as required by law.
Okay. Thank you. Next up is ordinance establishing some funds. Mr. Bassett again.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Again, I'm Keith Bassett from the city's finance department. The proposed ordinance creates separate funds to budget and account for certain activities in the proposed 2023-2024 biennial budget. The funds will help the city maintain a sound system of control over its finances and meet requirements for accounting for certain activities prescribed by the Washington State Auditor's Office. The three funds created by this ordinance would enable the required accounting for additional 0.25% real estate excise tax and the budgeted general facilities internal service fund and geographic information services, excuse me, geographic information systems internal service fund. Revenues and expenditures are budgeted in these funds as part of the proposed biennial budget ordinance presented earlier. And this is essentially a technical ordinance to create the necessary accounting structure to match the proposed budget. Staff recommends conducting first reading of ordinance 4902, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Bassett? I do. So how is the general facilities fund funded? what money goes in and why are we transferring ownership of buildings?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the internal service fund structure is set up to collect fees in a on a basis proportionate to perceived benefit from the other funds of the city. Special scrutiny is paid to restricted funds that cannot be used for general governmental purposes. And it's a methodical process, established procedures to set those rates, similar to the way we set rates for our current IT fund, shop fund, risk management fund, and employee health and benefits self-insurance fund. So the transfer of assets and funds is purely to ensure accurate accounting for the resources that are used for the purposes of the fund, as well as how those rates are then applied across the customer funds.
So parks and like the utilities both pay into a fund for maintaining this building.
Correct. But the cost recovery mechanism must be aligned with the benefit received by the fund.
Okay, great. Anyone else have questions? Motions?
Mayor, I move first reading ordinance 4902.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4902 establishing funds. Is any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I always forget to ask for that public comment, but there's no one. So it's okay.
See someone.
Yes. Opposed? That motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to Chapter 2.16 funds and amending Chapter 2.16 funds to add new sections entitled 2.16.4710 Article 34 Capitals Facility Fund, 2.16.4910 Article 35 General Facilities Fund, and 2.16.5010 Article 36 Geographic Information Systems Fund to the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. We are at item 9C regarding Shoreline Master Program Periodic Review Update. Mr. Ailing.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I offered to let Keith do this one too, but I didn't get a take on it. So you get a different face tonight. Like I said, Jamie Ailing with Community Development Department. And what you have before you tonight is the Shoreline Master Program. The city adopted the initial Shoreline Master Program in June of 2016 as a requirement of the Shoreline Management Act. The requirement of that act is to periodically update the plan every 8 years, and that would be the reason we are here and have this before you tonight. We are actually asking it to update a previously adopted plan that was done in 2016. So some people might ask, what is a Shoreline Master Program? The official answer would be that it is local land use policies and regulations that guide the use of Washington shorelines for both public and private uses. In our case, in Ellensburg, the program is adopted and referenced in our comprehensive plan, and we utilize the program when we look at development proposals or uses within the shoreline areas. The shorelines that we do have, they're fairly minimal in comparison to other jurisdictions. The city shoreline consists of about 1.5 miles of shoreline along the Yakima River, and it's all contained within Irene Reinhardt Park. So the other very small section that we have that is regulated as a shoreline is the northeast shore of Lake Mattoon. The city owns all the shoreline property and controls that along the Yakima River that falls within our shorelines. and the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife owns the lake and controls the shoreline of Lake Mattoon. Likelihood of much happening there is pretty slim, and we do have the benefit of having the control. The updates to the program that are proposed were all driven by updated legislation that changes over the years. And we have updated the plan as outlined in the periodic checklist that I provided in your packet. It breaks it down by year what the changes were. And like I said, they were very minimal for the plan. However, we are required to do this update. Most of them, shorelines affect not only rivers, but also oceans and lakes, but we don't have to worry about a lot of those, which a lot of the legislation reflects those would require much more updates if we did have an ocean or a lake next to us. So the update process consisted of an open house that I did to kick off the update in June of this year, and then held a joint public hearing with the Department of Ecology with our Planning Commission to gather additional public comment in August of this year, and then submitted the proposed document to the Department of Commerce for the required 60-day review in September. We are now ready to adopt Resolution 2022-38, amending our Shoreline Master Program and ask for the authorization to submit this to the Department of Ecology. Acceptance by Ecology will complete our periodic review for likely the next 8 years. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Amy? So is it safe to say we have issued no permits under the Shoreline Master Program?
That's correct. We don't have any docks or anything that nature into the shorelines.
Council?
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to comment on the Shoreline Master Program? Seeing no one in the room, and I see no one's hands raised. So.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, I move adoption of Resolution 2022-38, which is approval of the amendments to the Shoreline Master Program, authorizing submittal of proposed Shoreline Master Program to the Washington Department of Ecology.
Second. Motion and second to adopt Resolution 2022-38, amending the Shoreline Master Program and authorizing submission to the Washington State Department of Ecology. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Two will vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. That took a lot longer to describe than it took to read. We are moving way ahead to page 291, the fish funding request.
Madam Mayor and Council, Heidi Barron Sternaway, your city manager. You have before you two requests, and I'll provide a little bit of background. The executive director, Peggy Marash from Fish, came to council on March 21st and provided the council with two requests. One was for a $250,000 capital facility project to expand their airport location. And the second was to do a fee for services agreement to support several programs in the amount of $50,000 per year. And typically, and I guess I'll give a little more background here. The council at their retreat created their set of strategic, their priorities or vision, and included that was an item to talk about stepping into fill gaps in food security or food insecurity in our community. On June 6th, the council had a study session to talk about the city's role in food security at their study session. At that study session, the council asked the city manager to explore what other communities do with food security, what their role is typically. And I would mention one of the challenges of having an outside funding such as funding requests such as this is the city doesn't have a specific process to facilitate outside funding requests other than our biennial budget process. And so earlier in the year, the council said they would address this during the budget process. And so this is coming back to you, and I would update you on conditions have changed a bit. I met with the executive director a few weeks ago. The request for the capital project has shifted, and they were able to meet their needs for that program. And they would like to shift the request for the fee for services program to fund excuse me, I have to look at my papers here. The change came actually in your email, and it's at the dais here in a memo from the executive director. And the request would be for the Ellensburg Community Christmas Program, the weekend nutrition for children in Ellensburg, and the free lunches to residents program. And again, I mentioned that we don't have a specific process for funding. Typically, if we have a community problem, we look at the need, we develop a policy around that. We might do a public request for qualifications if we're looking for a provider, or develop a grant program, such as the grant programs you're going to be looking at with the council funded grant programs as well. Sometimes we do agreements with single source providers. Fish is the largest basic food provider in the community and the county, but not the only provider. So any request to fund would be through general government services. And as you mentioned, those are general government services that fund our day-to-day operations in the community. So staff would recommend council take action on the funding request, and I'm here to stand for any questions.
Council, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, so what is being asked of us this
So
evening?
we need to say yes or no to the request. And if I understood the request, it was for a service agreement to provide the weekend nutrition program and the community Christmas. And I guess I will, from my perspective, those are programs that could be funded under the grant, our grants program. And it seems unfair to me to go to direct funding for a project that could be grant funded. And it's unfair to everyone else who went through that grant program, because Fish wanted to sidestep the grant program and come to us directly. That's my perspective.
I guess my sense is, and I get it. I feel like they're approaching this from the in a manner that makes sense to them. So I don't know that it feels so much like a sidestep or necessarily inequity. I'm leery from the city's perspective of diving into these kinds of programs when I don't know where we stop making these kinds of extensions of city services. And if we're going to go down this route, we need to very clearly identify a revenue source that matches what we perceive the community's need to be. And we're probably going to get additional requests if we start providing these kinds of direct services through contract.
Which is why we set up the grant program in the first place.
Okay, so we're back to you were right. All good.
No, had great points.
I look at it, it's a different perspective. These kinds of programs we just need to be really careful about what we're doing and very intentional. And, we're literally talking about, and this is probably not something that's a one-time thing. This is something that where they're asking for, ongoing money, it'll eventually will grow, and there are going to be similar programs. These are general fund revenues, and general fund revenues, how we run the city.
And I guess I would point out, there was a lot of requests from different departments that we said no, and we did not fund library positions. And I forget what was on that list. We got it in our budget at our last meeting, the unfunded requests. And so that's the money that we would use for one or the other.
I would agree with the conversation. That's why I opened the conversation about what was being asked of us, because I agree with Councilmember Elliott's assessment that I think this is something that we should take very seriously, but I think we should understand how we're going to fund it before we launch into it. And we haven't really had that conversation. On the other side, I think this is a legitimate area for the city to consider for a lot of reasons. One is food insecurity is a major issue affecting members of our community. I think I don't know the exact numbers, but I think a very large percentage of Fish's customers come from residents within the city of Ellensburg. So we can't ignore it as well, it's not really a community, a city of Ellensburg issue. I mean, I get it. It's not government versus private sector or nonprofit. Fish also, we have to recognize, is the primary supplier of food in this county. They underwrite the other distributors of food, including Pollo and the food bank to some extent. So there's some pass through there as well. My understanding is they're really not in competition as they are collaborating. They may have other sources of funds that are independent and discrete, but the third point I would make is that I like the idea of the grant program, but as anyone who served on a council grant program committee or any other of our city grant program committees knows, we don't have enough money as it is. We received, I think on our council funded applications this year, I think our ask was about $80,000. We had about 15. So there's a huge disparity in terms of what people in the community want. So I think the idea of saying, well, we'll just throw 50,000 on top of the pile and we'll see if they rank, it's just not sustainable. So I think the burden is on us as a council to have some conversations about, is this important within the community? And if so, how are we going to fund it? And I don't feel like we're there yet. Obviously, we don't have an answer. So, yeah.
I think it's tremendously important in the community, and I think and I think Fish does an amazing job at doing what they do. But I'm not sure that it falls to the city government and the taxpayers to fund it, just because it is a need. And the city manager did put together a list of, other communities and what they provide for food security, and the answer is not much for any of the comparable cities. So it is traditionally not a city government responsibility. It is a faith-based. Fish is a faith-based organization. The churches support it. The community supports it. So the question is it appropriate for the taxpayers to support it?
I would just say that I agree with all the comments that have been made. And especially David's, Councilmember Miller's point about the number of people who are experiencing food insecurity in our community. I also understand and agree that this is something that city's government has never done. And frankly, I was surprised at the number of cities that were polled on this that are not doing anything about the food issues in their community. And it may be that at some point down the line, the whole situation could change, and council may need to look at it in a different light at some point. And so I think Councilmember Miller's point about continuing to talk about it and how we might help is a good one.
Yeah, I think I said before, I'm happy to pass through other sources of funding. I'm guarding the general fund funding. But if there was some other source, if we could get a grant from somewhere to pass through and assist Fishwick, I would be very open to that.
Yeah, I think the point is, I mean, they live off grant funding. I think they're looking for some to broaden their funding, and not have everything be grant funded or donation funded. And so I'm not, I mean, well, I think, all money has a purpose and is used effectively towards the problem, it, benefits it. I think that broader than that, they're not looking for grant funding. They have grant funding.
So is there a motion to fund or not fund the programs that were requested?
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that we do not fund fish as per the request that has been made of us at this time. But that we express a willingness to revisit that discussion and perhaps try to find ways to help fish in the future through a grant program or something.
I'll second that.
Motion and second to decline funding for the fish programs at this time, but to leave the door open to revisit that discussion in the future if there's a way we could help out without general fund money. That was most of it.
My understanding of the motion was it did not exclude general fund money, just continue the conversation. Is that, did I understand it correctly? Okay.
Yeah, at this time, it would not exclude general. Okay. It would exclude general funding.
Well, at this time. But future conversations are still open. Right? Well,
Well,
you made the motion. I don't want to correct it. It's,
Yes,
my
I
understanding
think
was
so. I mean, depending on what happens, depending on opportunities that come along that we might pass along to them. But I am cautious about using general fund monies for this purpose.
So we'll just shorten that motion to it. The motion is to decline funding for fish at this time, but leave that indicate our willingness to have future discussions.
yes. I'll support that. Thanks.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Two or what I opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So we are at item 11A. Council funded program grant programs. Page 295.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's Heidi Baron Sternaway, City Manager. So you have before you a recommendation for funding for 4 council-funded grants. The City Council had a subcommittee, the Parks and Recreation does a Parks Partnership Program, and Landmarks and Design does a Historic Preservation Grants, and the Environmental Commission made the recommendation for the Water Quality Grants. The funding comes by policy with 0.3% of the annual sales tax revenue for the council funded grants, the parks grants, and the historic preservation grants. The water quality grants are capped at $10,000. So on page 297, you have the list of requests and then the recommendations for each committee's award. And there's one anomaly in your packet. You also have a memo from the Parks and Recreation decision. The funding they had available, they did not receive funding requests that were, or the total funding requests they received were under the amount that was available. The recommendation is to award the remainder, which is just $3,752 to split that between, $4,239 to split that between the two applicants per the grid. And also on the dais, you received a comment from Ms. Benel Miller, and there's a staff response to that as well. And just the staff summary, and we have Community Development Director Jamie Ailing with us if you have other clarifications. When the committees make the recommendations for funding, that doesn't mean the projects are approved. And so specifically for landmarks and design, there's specific actions that the applicants will have to take to walk through the design process. And so staff is working with that. And that's the short summary of the staff response you have in front of you. So again, we're here for questions, and recommendation would be to approve the council funded grants program funding.
Are there questions regarding the?
It's not a question as much as like, well, maybe it's a question on the proposal in the parks to reallocate the unexpended funds. Are those funds restricted in terms of these are all available for other use? My observation on that, nothing against parks and nothing against pickleball or rugby. But if we look at the allocation, the parks, the requests were below what the award amount or the available resources were. And that's in, stark contrast to what we experienced at the council funded level. We had a $91,000, almost $92,000 ask, and even the $50,000 taking that out, which was a kind of an outlier that we didn't fund. It's still, equivalent to almost 3 times, near 2.5 times the ask. So I'm not opposed to reallocating the $4,000 else back into the park applicants, but I think we've got some unfunded, or I know certainly Councilmember Golan could attest, we had to slice and dice the applications in the council funded programs quite a lot to make it work. So putting some more money back into that would not offend me.
If there are no questions, I'll go to public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak to the grants? Ms. Miller? Fennell Miller is online. Can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Fennell Miller, 605 North Anderson Street, Ellensburg, Washington, 98926, speaking for myself as a historic preservationist. I guess I won't read my entire letter that I wrote, especially given the fact that apparently there was a response that I can't really see. But my biggest concern is that the Landmarks Commission did not consider these grants very thoroughly. And they simply said, well, this one is a good one, and this one is a good one, and this one's less important. So we'll just divvy them out X% each. And I think that's a mistake because several of the line items in 2 of the grants on East 3rd Street include items that they sought funding for that are pretty much not eligible activities, like sealing brick. There's been a great deal of study and conversation about the treatment of historic masonry, including brick, in the historic preservation community for, I don't know, at least 50 years now. And the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, the National Park Service preservation briefs, everybody say that sealing brick is never a good idea. Even something that's called water repellent, which is always better than waterproof, but even water repellent allows water vapor to accumulate inside the structure and can lead to really substantial structural damage. So it's not just the sort of a meaningless little nitpicky thing. It's really important. And there was no discussion, no back and forth between the commission asking questions about where that will be and why they were proposing it. Same with the painting. of the structure, of one of the other structures. And so I think that it would be a good idea to go back and take out the ineligible activities and have the Landmarks Commission actually look at the grant applications. I watched them online. I zoomed for that meeting, and there really was no line by line discussion of the grants themselves about which was appropriate actions and which wasn't. I don't know what they're proposing to do with the tuck pointing on the brick, but again, that's another action that has had a great deal of study, and there are appropriate ways to do it and not do it. There was a minimal amount of discussion of cleaning the brick, but no specifics. And so I don't know about that. But again, there are definitely very specific no-nos in cleaning a historic masonry facade. And then too, if they decide to use chemicals, those need to be contained so they don't end up in the stormwater sewer and they don't end up in the tree wells or the, where the roots of the trees are. And none of that was discussed either. So my concern is that this gets back to Landmarks Commission.
Your time is up. So it was a three minutes. Thank you for bringing this forward. I don't know if does the council have any questions for Ms. Miller? I think that the upshot was that all the applicants still have to go get a COA. But I get the point that it looks like we're funding something that would be ineligible if we don't go line by line, or if we don't review for those kinds of things. And I would, so even though they have to go get a COA, it doesn't, and yes, they can. I think the other point was it can be in the contract. The money doesn't go for this, the ineligible items. So I think that there is a way to deal with your concerns, but just I think in the future, I think we should be sensitive to what it appears we're funding when we just fund the whole project without looking at which pieces of it are eligible and not eligible. I think that is a fair point.
A comment?
Sure.
I would just add to that. I think I think the comment made in writing and followed up, I think is on point. I think, and the staff response is clarified that no funding will be used for the sealing of the brick, which is, I think, a critical issue. But I think there's also the fact that, and I rely on staff coordination as much as the commission on this, to obtain the COA, the work will have to conform to the NPS rules, whether it's funded by the city or not, right? So if sealing of brick is not consistent with the guidelines, then the COA in all likelihood would not be issued. But I would leave that to the commission and staff, but I would point that out. It's not simply a matter of what we're paying for. If the COA is dependent on following guidelines, I think they need to be followed. So.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the grants? Seeing no one. Is there a motion?
I have a question. So would the motion be to accept the as
Motion would be
presented
to accept
and
this.
allocate the parts?
We can, if you want to reallocate differently than what the Parks Commission suggested, then we need to include that as part of your motion.
I just raised that as an issue. I haven't heard anyone else mention it, so I don't know if I'm the only one that is.
So with the
about that,
committee,
so.
the subcommittee, you would have to meet again and allocate that $4,000.
Feel like that'd be something for next year's. Moving forward from here is if we end up with the same situation, then we look at the requests for the other grants and then reallocate the funds to that one.
Yeah, it feels unfair to take it from the parks initial allocation, put it in council community grants without looking at the whole program. Not looking at all of the applicants against each other.
Yeah.
Feels complicated.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'd probably favor not sort of reallocating it within there. I'd probably recommend holding that amount and putting it into next year's allocation, but it's not a significant amount of money. So in the overall scheme of things, so I'd be all right with it either way.
Could it be possible, just for the conversation, when funds come in, the percentage of funds get allocated proportionately to the application request?
It is in ordinance or resolution.
A resolution, it's a policy
So-
that each commission has its own, they make their own recommendations. And if there's unbudgeted amounts or amount that's not recommended, council has the ability to redirect that, whether it's in this year or in the 2023 budget or in the following year's budget.
But is the policy to split them up equally? Or can that
So-
happen after all of the requests come in and that?
So on page 295, by resolution, each of those grant programs, except the water quality, gets 0.3% of the annual sales tax revenue as of last
Oh,
year.
okay.
So we would have to change that amount because we get more requests in the community grant program traditionally. I mean, we could discuss changing those proportions.
I think that's true. And I know when our council subcommittee that evaluated these, I think one of the conclusions I came away with was that we kind of know how much money is available in any given year, right? But I don't think we advertise that. So we end up with $17,000 available. We get an ask for 50 in one application. It's kind of pointless in that sense. And I think we could do a better job of publishing prior, when the announcements are made that, hey, we have a total of X dollars available. Consider this in your applications, and we'll still get $50,000 asks. I get that, but I think that's one. But to Councilmember Miller's point, I think the unexpended dollars, I think, could just be carried forward to the 23 year and allocated how we choose. Doesn't require any change of the percentages, right? It's a separate thing. Right? Because we're talking about the funding stream versus what we do with the unexpended money. So
And I
it's
would,
getting more complicated.
I would
I apologize.
say that one of the recommendations that came out of the Community Grants Committee to the city manager was to change that process so that at least with those grants, the amount of money that's available will be made known to those who apply so they can gear their grant, maybe their requests a little bit more to the realistically. But I don't know if that's for the all of the grants or just. So I think we closed the loop on that problem.
So.
I would move to authorize the 2023 grant funding distributions in the amount of $62,775.19 for community grants, park partnerships, historic preservation grants, and water quality grants. As presented.
Second.
Motion and second to authorize the 2023 grant funding distributions as presented. Is there further discussion?
I just have a question. Is the $62,775.19, does that include the total amount authorized or the amount awarded? Or the at the parks level, or are we?
So both, and in the recommended distribution, it's taking that additional $4,000 and splitting it between the two applicants under the Parks Partnership
So it's
Program.
all inclusive then? Okay, thank you.
I would just comment that think I'm remembering a conversation council had a couple of years ago when we thought it might be a good idea before we submit all of our applications to see if anybody had any extra money that could be moved around. And I think there was pretty much just agreement on that process. So that might be something to think about for next year also.
I think we have moved money before.
we have.
Between programs, but I don't remember details.
Yeah, I like that. If we can incorporate, it may be a rare occurrence, but I'd like to incorporate that into our sequence before it gets to department level and we have a recommendation to reallocate it with the council. It's first shot at that, and I think it would be worthwhile to have that opportunity. Because given an opportunity to take money and reallocate it, who would turn that down? Right? I mean, I get it. Money's hard to come by.
So I just want to clarify, the motion is to approve it as is.
As is with, which includes the recommendation to reallocate the 4,000, so 17,000 would be going to parks, and they would just give rugby and pickleball extra because they can use it. They just didn't ask for it.
So there's not we talked a minute about just about saving it for next year or using it later. So that's not what
The
we're.
motion on the table is to use the extra for the parks projects that were submitted.
And two things. One, I was at that parks meeting when they re-met with the applicants and they confirmed they could spend it. And
Very good.
secondly, I feel like this roster of recommendations is an awesome representation of the great work that's happening in our community. And I feel like having these funds available is a great opportunity for us to learn about the work that's happening and also support it even on this scale.
And I just want to say I appreciate the work of the subcommittee to, I have done that before and it's very difficult to try to whittle $92,000 of requests down to $17,000. So I appreciate the three of you working on that. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So we move to the Arts Commission grant.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, Josephine Camarillo, Library Director and Arts Commission Staff Liaison. The Arts Commission provides grant funds to provide financial support for arts programs and projects in Ellensburg. The commission places priority on those programs that best reflects its mission and core values and serves the residents of Ellensburg. Artists and organizations are invited to submit project requests for funding between $100 and $2,500 that meet 4 criteria: development of new artwork, arts-related events, interpretation of existing artwork, presentation of new artworks or collection of artworks. 2023 grant cycle opened June 1st and closed on August 31st with 23 applicants. The commission reviewed, discussed, and scored each applicant and would like to recommend the following 13 grant awards totaling $24,523 found on page 300 for council approval for fiscal year 2023.
Are there questions?
I just want to say I'm really impressed with the number of different kinds of art projects that were funded and appreciate the work that you've done and the commission has done to make that happen in our community.
I would echo that. I was the Arts Commission liaison. I think the committee or the commission did tremendous, with staff support, did a tremendous amount of work. On this. So, well done, I'd say.
And it's going to be a fun year.
Yes.
We have a motion.
I'll move that we accept the recommendation from the Arts Commission for the 2023 grant cycle.
Second.
Motion and second to accept the Ellensburg Arts Commission's recommendations for the 2023 grant cycle.
I'll abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I too will vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I see members of the Arts Commission here. I once again forgot to ask for public comment. Did you?
Oh, next item. They're here for next item too.
Okay. So we are moving to the Arts Commission end of the year review and spending plan.
I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint. If I could find it.
Homework with library science, be prepared.
In my own computer.
Yeah, got it. It's in that council. You didn't put it in. Oops.
I'd like to invite Alex Ayer, our Arts Commission Chair.
Good evening. I'm Alex Ayer. I'm the chairman of the Ellensburg Arts Commission. Thank you, council members, city manager, Mr. City Attorney. Sarah, it's my first presentation with you on the council. Lovely to see you here, and Rich, nice to see you as well. It's been a really great year. I want to thank the council very much and the city for their continued support in the upcoming biennium. There's some very, very, very exciting things coming up for us and the city in the arts community, and we really deeply appreciate your support. Let me see, first and foremost, we had actually 3 new members of the Arts Commission recently. We finally filled Councilwoman Miller's vacancy on the commission. It was hard to fill. So we have 2 new commissioners, Jill Sheffer, who you all know very well for her service here on the city council. And we look forward to her council experience and her grant writing prowess to assist us. And Jeffrey Schnedeker, who you all know is a preeminent musician, CW faculty member. I think he's an emeritus professor now. He's been a great asset already just in the past couple of meetings. So that's very nice. And we have another opening that's going to come at the end of this year for January. Cassandra Town is going to step off of the commission, although she still continues to serve as the chairman of the Macmillan Foundation, who shares a tremendous amount of information and opportunity with us in terms of funding around the county. There may be an appointment due for that, but we're going to take that up with Terry later. Sorry, space bar to advance. arrow up, down, left, right, up, down. I can't hear a thing in this room. I don't know why I can't hear anything in this room. Okay, next, great. One of the things that we do each year, of course, is award our arch treasure to a member of our community who we feel has, given of themselves to an estimable extent. This year, the honor went to Richard Denner, who is known to many of you as John Dorje or Dorje. He's a well-known mentor, poet, publisher, man of the world. We find him to be a tremendous community asset. He has already given several presentations, both by himself with other poets, since his investiture. We just continue to really kind of love the light that he brings to our community. It's just it's our great pleasure to recognize him as a longtime Ellensburg resident, in addition to being a business owner and raconteur, world traveler. The other thing that we do annually is we select artwork from the Kittitas County Juried Show held at Gallery 1. We have a committee that selects artwork that we feel is really well suited to the permanent collection of the city. These works by Victoria Phillip, who she appears on another one of our bus shelters, Edward Horn, and a work coincidentally by Jampa, which was people really wanted to have a piece of his in the permanent collection. Nice wood assemblage, large. We're currently in the process of finding a home for these around the city. We have pretty much filled up the hallway here. Jerry Doherty, who serves on the commission with me, is here tonight, and he and I have completed the remaining plaques for the artwork that's hung in the city hall and other locations that the artwork's going to be installed in the recreational center. That'll be done this week. Looking forward to having that done, and we're continuing to do an assessment of the city's permanent collection, which is housed in the library. Of course, we continue to to monitor and to organize the First Friday Art Walk, which has become more and more successful all the time. 23 venues currently in the downtown. The John L. Scott office has recently become our newest venue, kind of extending the reach of the downtown outside. So we continue to support First Friday as a very vibrant and important part of our community arts engagement. COVID, certainly affected everything. And one of the projects that really held up for us was this long funded skate park mural by Jason Clifton. We were very, very happy to finally see this. Thank you, approved by council and by the Parks Commission to have this implemented. I think it's a really, really wonderful, bold, creative statement by Jason, very talented artist that honors skating heroes for the kids that skate at the skate park. That would not include me. I'll be back with a few more things, but one thing that we've been talking about for 6 or 7 years is the creation of a poet laureate for the city of Ellensburg. Poetry has always been an important part of what we fund through the Arts Commission. It's just such an important part of our community. I always brag about the programs of poetry reading that we do fund have always just grown exponentially every year. And we felt that it was time. The process of choosing that poet laureate again was, suspended like everything else. But we finally were very happy to announce this year with an investiture ceremony at Gallery 1, our new poet laureate, Marie Marchand, who is an extraordinary writer. And she is here and she's going to come present some of her work and talk to you about herself. And I invite you to listen to Marie Marchand.
Welcome, Marie.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. Manager. Thank you so much for the invitation to come and give a brief update. I only have a few slides for you, but I wanted to let you know of some highlights. I have a 1.5-page memo here that I'm going to hand out to you that kind of details things. But as a highlight, I wanted to kind of give you an idea of the type of outreach that I'm participating in. And so these are 5 events that I've chosen to feature with you tonight. And it gives you an idea of the diversity of audience that I'm engaging. So the first 2 were poetry walks in nature. That's kind of become my thing. And then CW and the library invited me to do another one in May, which I'm really excited about. But I worked with Nan Doolittle for a September event, and that was at Olmsted Place State Park. And it was an entire morning, and it was a contemplative experience, and it was very enjoyable. And then the following month, the Cowiche Canyon Conservancy invited me to lead a poetry walk at Snow Mountain Ranch in Yakima. And so we read autumn themed poems, and I actually have some of those packets to give to you if you'd like to. We're going to get winter tonight, I think. So if you're into autumn themed poems, now's the time to do it before winter comes. And so we read poems, we wrote poetry, and in this butterfly garden, people wrote poems and then shared them. And what I'm finding is it's just a really amazing community building experience for people, because they can get really deep quickly, you know, kind of vulnerable. And then it's in a caring environment. And so that was really wonderful, those 2 experiences. And then I was invited to read at Pacifica Senior Living, and they filled the lobby with their residents. And it was just a deeply enjoyable experience, especially since my mother had Alzheimer's and she really enjoyed poetry during that time. So that was meaningful. And then a direct contrast from our elders to our high school students, I went to Ellensburg High School Creative Writing Club and did a blackout poetry exercise. And then also one called Where I'm From. And that's kind of a poetry templates project that was started by a poet named George Ella Lyon in the South. And it's actually something that I would be interested in doing with you all if you ever have retreats for development and getting to know type of thing. It's about a 40-minute exercise, and I think you would really enjoy it. So let me know if you want to do that. And then another thing that was in my kind of my goals and my proposal to you all was the healing poetry circles. And so I have been working with Kittitas County Recovery Center to lead poetry workshops. And the first was going to be on November 18th, but unfortunately nobody came. But as I mentioned in my memo, it was kind of a learning experience. Like, now I know that I really need to be more involved in the promotion aspect of it and not rely on kind of the organizers. So I'm going to be working with them to really promote this so that we can have some folks show up, because I think it would be a really powerful experience for people in recovery. And then these are just some photos. So on the left, we have me and Nan Doolittle, and then below that are some of the people involved in that Olmsted experience. And then in the middle is me and Lee Bates, and that was a Ukraine benefit concert just a few weeks ago. And then a reading at Old Schools with John Bedorje's group. And then the poetry hike at the autumn, the Fall Colors Walk. And then my last slide is upcoming events. So I'm reading some poetry this Wednesday, actually in Tieton. And then the Chamber for Choir is going to actually premiere a poem that I wrote for them. And that will be at the United Methodist Church on December 2nd. And then I'm losing my voice. I hope I didn't get my cold from Alex tonight. Okay. And then this one is going to be really exciting. And it's co-hosted by a number of organizations, including Gallery One and NEAR, which is Nan Doolittle's organization. And that stands for Northwest Expressive Arts Response. And that is going to be celebrating Women's History Month. And we're going to have Washington State Poet Laureate Rena Priest with us for that. So at this time, I can take any questions that you might have. Questions?
Please save your voice for your next performance. But I'm just curious because I have to admit, I'm not familiar. If just maybe a couple of words, could you enlighten me about what is involved in blackout poetry?
Oh, okay. Yes. So you take a piece of page in a book and then you choose the words that you want and then you black out everything
Okay,
else.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to comment that I was at the concert, Vox Humana concert, and yeah, your poetry really was a nice touch. I mean, appreciated it a lot.
Thank you so much. I was really happy that Lee Bates included poetry, music, and art in the concert.
Is there anyone from the audience who would like to, or Alex, are you done with? Do you have more presentation? Are you gonna take the microphone back? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I get to talk again. Just talking about the money portion. So as was presented earlier, the Arts Commission had selected their 2023 grant awards, and thank you again for passing that earlier tonight. And then for their spending plan for 2023. In 2016, council designated 10% of construction sales tax revenue to community art with an annual ceiling of $50,000. As stewards of these funds, the Arts Commission has developed a spending plan to facilitate proposed expenses. First is the grants awards, $25,000 allocated to artists and organizations for art programs and projects. Operations is $8,500 allocated towards regular expenses that include supplies, advertising, and professional development. Capital Public Art, $3,500 for purchase of local art for the inclusion to the city art collection. And for staffing, $13,000 contribution to a possible arts and economic development manager position, beneficial to the Arts Commission as the commission continues to grow and prosper, especially with the commission's involvement with the Ellensburg Community Cultural Arts Plan. And Alex will be talking a little bit more about that. Any questions about the spending plan? Right, Alex?
I hope I'm not contagious. I want to thank the council very much for the approval of that shared staff member. That's going to make a tremendous amount of difference to our capabilities. And I also want to thank Josephine for her long-standing service to us as our liaison. She's done a fantastic job for us and totally a thankless job that we thank her for doing. I want to touch on what Nancy said earlier. We've really changed our paradigm in our selection of the grant recipients to bolster and encourage stronger applicants that really are bringing the best cultural benefit and community benefit to the city. And Jerry puts together the matrix that we use to assess those applications, and we really work hard to make sure that we are getting the best diversity of programs and projects and artists for the biggest bang we can get for our buck. So yeah, we try to kind of appease everybody. We're really trying to drive our applicants to put in stronger, better projects for our consideration and funding. I think that the most exciting thing that's happened this year is that in our attempt to achieve a creative district status for a portion of the city of Ellensburg through a Washington State arts program, the creative district program, necessitated in conducting a cultural study, which was presented to you earlier this year by Una McAlindon, who did that study for us, and by Kelly Vandenberg. What grew out of that, the community group that put that plan together fomented the creation of the Arts and Cultural Alliance. The ECAP brought about the Arts and Cultural Alliance, which has been charged with implementing that cultural plan. Many aspects of which are already starting to move forward. We're talking about the studies for a new performance space, for the new makers space. We're looking at plans for that. And of course, we're looking for expanded funding sources, new and expanded funding sources for those projects. It was just, this is just a really, it was so encouraging to see so many people come forward and just really work hard on this process. It was a series of, 8 meetings across about 3 months. A lot of really concerted work by members of our community who came forward and put out the time and let us know what the needs of the arts community were, and helping us to develop a vision for a 1-year, 3-year, and 5 and 10-year plan for where we see the arts going. I think there's a tremendous thing that's going to happen here in the next couple of years. That's just going to really, really do what we want to do and make us a central focus point for the arts in the state of Washington and for the region. That's pretty much it. I'd like to say something on a personal note, if I could have a minute or two. Most of you know me as a real estate professional, as a realtor, and I've been in my business for 22 years. And about a month ago, I decided to take a little hiatus from my work and step back from it in a very challenging and weird market. And in the past couple of weeks, I've really decided that I think I'm going to make that change permanent, because I want to spend the rest of my time as an arts commissioner and commission member full time working on these programs and these things that you're helping us do. I'm just going to go all in and make sure that these things go forward and we grow and we put ourselves where we need to be in, culturally and artistically in a much bigger realm. So I really want to thank you. The commission thanks you. I look forward to your continued support. Thank you for your support in the upcoming biennium. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Questions?
Not about real estate, please.
I'll just offer, I thank you for your dedication to the arts, and I don't think we would be where we are without your leadership on the Arts Commission over the last 10 years more. Yeah, so a while. Yeah. So. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak regarding the Arts Commission? And is there anyone online? Oh, Brenda?
Brenda DeVore, Ellensburg Downtown Association. I just want to thank the Arts Commission for their continued support of bringing music and art to downtown Ellensburg, and we look forward to seeing what we can do to partner with them in 2023. Thank you.
Council.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the 2023 Arts Commission spending plan as presented.
Second. Motion and second to approve the 2023 Arts Commission spending plan as presented. Is there any discussion?
I would just echo what's been said already. It's a lot of work went into this and a lot of dedication, a lot of time. So I appreciate all of that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are nearing the end. Legislative priorities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Heidi Baron Cernaway, again, the city manager. Before you, you have a set of proposed 2023 legislative priorities. The reason we put forth a list of legislative priorities is because state and federal policies affect us here locally, sometimes quite significantly. And this takes the elements that we know may be out there at the state level, especially, and also looks at our current strategic vision and puts those together into a list of items that we will bring forth in advocacy as we visit, especially with our friends in the 13th district. And so this is coming forward to you a little bit early this year. Typically, we do these in December for the January legislative session. The chamber is actually hosting their legislative day next week, so these are coming a little bit early. And as you see, the topics essentially are energy policy. We have a number of regulatory requirements that our utilities need to respond to, and making sure that we are able to advocate for the needs for our community and for the policies and support that continue to get us there. Also, the flexibility for housing and homelessness. You'll see a list of items, making sure that we have the ability to especially get more tools to retain affordable housing and continue to get the flexibility to address local problems that we have in our rural cities. Our wastewater treatment plan is probably one of the most significant infrastructure investments we need to make in this community to make sure we are future proofing our infrastructure systems to the tune of about $21 million at this point. So making sure that that's on our radar. There are some grant opportunities. We've done some fee work but making sure that setting ourselves up for potential state support for that project. As well as expanding our access to behavioral health resources. We have some gaps in our community, as noted through a number of discussions, specifically with the ad hoc committee, and looking for opportunities and for state participation in helping support those services as we move forward. There are a number of public safety. One is a proposed reserve officer mandatory training that would put some pretty significant roadblocks into a volunteer workforce that we use to help extend our public safety officers. And then some fixes with the Blake decision, and specifically helping to remedy and offset some of the funding requirements that some of the criminal convictions have impacted us, and then making investments in some of the alternatives for response teams rather than just police for dealing with drug and possession. And then in addition to, there are a couple unfunded mandates that have been recognized recently. One is the medical costs for felony inmates have been transferred to cities. While that hasn't been a significant impact, I believe the last bill was about $75,000 for the last, from 2022 year to date. That can be pretty significant with one major health issue with someone that's incarcerated. And then the Office of Public Defense, we put in $75,000 for new costs. That was a cost that's delivered to local governments, and the county is putting together a new office essentially, and we will have a part in that. And so making sure that we have the ability to speak to these. There may be other issues that come up, and we would circle back to you in order to get some feedback and recommendations and a council position. But these are elements that we believe will be out there, and we'll be actively advocating for those on behalf of the city of Ellensburg. So before you, our staff recommendation would be to approve the proposed 2023 city legislative priorities. And then what we would do is take these and distill those down into sort of one sheet that we can actually deliver to folks that we're talking with.
And I'll just add this, Heidi's presenting to our legislative delegation next week. So that's why it's in front of you tonight. So.
Question on the municipal natural gas utility. I think we're one of two in the state that has, I think it's Enumclaw, that's the other. Have we coordinated with them? Are they on the same page? Are they asking for the same? I mean, I don't know if they do this, but
They've taken a pretty resistant stance to the regulatory environment. And so we're talking with them, but they've taken a different approach.
a different approach. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I would move approval of the proposed 2023 city legislative
priorities.
Second.
Motion to approve the proposed 2023 city legislative priorities. Discussion?
I just want to thank the staff, city manager's office and others who've contributed to this and a lot of work goes into it to get these formulated in a concise way. So thank you.
Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And let's see. So we are at the manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Once again, I have a very short list. Just a reminder that the community Thanksgiving meal is on November 23rd from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Armory. Everyone is welcome. I believe all of our volunteer shifts are filled for that day. There are probably still some openings for tomorrow. So if you find yourself with some extra time and a food handler's card, come on down. But please, again, the community is welcome for this public event. And again, that's Wednesday, the 23rd. The banners funded by the lodging tax, if you've driven down Main Street to South Canyon, and then they're going up along University and Dollar Way. They're the myellensburg.com banners. So in partnership with Central Washington University and City of Ellensburg. So they're lovely and they have heavier duty cloth that we hope will not rip or fade as easily. So try to make those a little wind and weatherproof. Just a warning, a heads up, Dollar Way closure. It was planned to be open on the 28th of November. With the recent extension of halfway decent weather, the contractor is available to stay and do a little extra work. So we're looking at maybe extending that closure to December 9th. We've sending out mailers. We'll do notices and we'll let folks know as soon as that decision is formally made, but that's what we're looking at this point. And then another very significant project, we have a 24-inch water main on the west side of our community, and they're going to be adding some valves which help us with some security long-term and the ability to shut down sections of the water. And so it provides some better resilience. And so there are valves that are going to be replaced. It's potentially could impact from Highway 97 all the way to 10th and Water. So we've done mailings for those folks. So there will be some water outages that will be starting the week of the 28th. So next week, folks should be aware and have lots of signs up as well. And then just a reminder that tonight we do have an executive session for RCW 42.30.1101B and 42.30.1101C. And I would recommend a 5-minute no action after.
5 minutes for both. Okay. Council member reports. Councilmember Poach.
I was busy girl last week, so I'll be real quick. So I had my library meeting and they were happy to report they're doing well with their budget and they're staying on track. They have a lot of revamping with their staffing model. They got a lot of internal shuffling, and so they're trying to make that more efficient, I guess. Circulation is up, and their Friends of the Library book sale was a big success for them. And they're looking, so if anyone brainstorm better ways to have attendance at their readings and authors at the library. The attendance has been fairly low. Library will be closed Thanksgiving Day and the day after, so Thursday and Friday of this week. And Hal Holmes is booked through the end of the year, so that's a great source of revenue that they've got going there. On to my senior advisory at the senior center. I was invited by the members to enjoy one of their exercise classes with them, so I took them up on that. And they work it. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun and it was hugely attended. It was packed in there, so that was a good time. The community Thanksgiving, like city manager said, they've got all their volunteers, which is great. If anybody wants to help tomorrow with the meal, I am cooking turkeys. I'm not a cook, so we're gonna go for it. So, and carving them, huh?
See how that goes.
Yeah, right, right. She
Heads
said they're
up.
coming all prepared. All I gotta do is put them in the oven, so. will be good. So they also are in a friendly competition with the Harmon Center out of Yakima, which is huge, for a recycling project. So if they can get 500 pounds of the, no bottles, but the stretchier type plastics, you know, like wraps and different things like that, they call it stretchy plastic. And then they will, let me get my notes here. It's oh shoot. Well, I forgot to write that part down. I apologize. There's a committee that they're working with that will donate a bench to the senior center if they get this 500 pounds of plastic. So you can drop that off with Caitlin at the senior center if you have that. And then last, there is their Christmas party is on Friday, December 16th, and they're in need of a Santa and music. So if anybody has any ins there and could let them know, donated time is always the best. So that's a great thing. And then just on kind of a personal note, I was just very busy this last couple of weeks also. I saw people all over town, but tomorrow night I'm finishing up the Citizens Police Academy tomorrow night. If you have not done it, I highly recommend it. It's one of the greatest experiences I've done and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I went to the Keene kickoff campaign, which I was with other council members and our mayor for the Yakima Canyon Interpretive Center. It was well attended and it was great. I'm really excited about that project. And then I was at the Hope Source open house for their new location. Absolutely gorgeous there at the train station. I think it's going to be utilized quite well by them down there. And then I also got to get all dressed up and I went to the KCRCO, their first gala event. And as far as a first time event for them, for the recovery community, it was a very big success. And so I was happy to be a part of that as well. So there. I was busy.
Attended Centrifuge and just sort of as a prompt for the council. You know, between the Ellensburg Downtown Association, Kittitas County Chamber, Centrifuge, and sort of some other parallel efforts. I think there are some opportunities for us to provide some level of clarity and focus in our economic development efforts because there is some duplicity in those efforts, and in some cases, maybe even things that there's gaps, and I think there's also probably some efforts that probably need to be aligned better. So we just to sort of enhance or heighten that awareness. COG with Nancy, although I only attended a little piece of it, somebody burned their wall up. But they made the decision on the distress sales tax funding as a recommendation to the county commissioners. I doubt it's going to survive measures, but so we may have it back. Talked about the I-90 backups and just to give you guys kind of an idea what's kind of going on in the background with we have the Kittitas County Health Network, which I'm a member, and it is incredibly functional. It's doing a lot of really positive things in the community, connecting services and things like that. But the healthcare system in Washington State is stressed to the point where Children's and Mary Bridge stopped accepting new kids, secondary to RSV. Yakima Memorial shut down an entire floor of their hospital. That's after they shut down a hospital in Yakima in the last 10 years. And Confluent shut down a floor in their hospital due to staffing issues. We're transferring people out as far out as Wyoming. And if you hear a lot of helicopters in the air, we're running about 300% of our normal airlifts. So we're transporting people by helicopter who used to not be transferred or could have gone somewhere by ground at roughly a 10 to 1 cost. There's my good news.
Patient pays for that, right?
$32,000 for a trip to Seattle.
I helicopter.
Wyoming's a little more expensive, right?
Councilmember Goodlaw.
Yes,
Got any good news for us?
I do. On November 12th, the DEI Commission and ESD and CW hosted the first Belonging in the Bird community discussion. And I would say it was a great success. We had over 70 people there. We had excellent conversation, very good facilitation, and really good food. And I appreciate all the efforts of the city staff, Nicole, Klaus, just did yeoman's duty to get ready for the event, and Heidi participated as well. And they both got recruited for facilitators because we had so many people that we weren't expecting. So we were very excited about that. And we looking forward to doing those again in 2023. And looking, I haven't seen the evaluations of the event yet, but we are anticipating some themes and possibly recommendations for some of those meetings in 2023 out of that. Yes, I went to the COG meeting, and it gives me great displeasure to hear from Rich that our recommendations are probably not going to be accepted because we spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. And I also participated in the economic development update on the TIP strategies. That was a Zoom call, and the experts from Houston were there, and it was both overwhelming and exciting to hear some of the things. And I'm anxious to read that report and look a little bit more at the details of some of the things that they're doing. And Madam Mayor, I was going to suggest that we have a moment of silence for the victims and families of the Colorado Springs shooting this weekend. I believe that was a hate crime. I think it's been designated that, and that is something that we don't stand for in this city. So we appreciate that.
Sure, if we could just take a moment.
Thank you. In no particular order, but since Councilmember Goodlow gave such a great description of the belonging in the burg, I'll start there. So I completely agree with everything Councilmember Goodlow said. I thought it was a great event. I really was impressed with the participation from members of our community. Came away with a lot of, it's always sort of fulfilling to hear people care that much about our community, but also came away with the understanding that we have a lot more work to do. And I think I'm glad. And I want to just thank the council. I just really appreciate the leadership of the council and having the vision to partner with Owensburg School District and CWU to make this triad, if you will, come together. I think it shows real leadership, and I appreciate that for the council. Let's see, also to the Dispute Resolution Center, they helped facilitate the event, and I think they did a really nice job. So kudos to them. And then I attended the Reed Park meeting the other night in this building. And I came in, I thought I was going to time my entrance strategically, but I sort of hit the lull. So I think staff and all the Parks and Rec Commission members wore everybody out because they were kind of wrapping up the last part. But I did get a chance to get a good briefing, and I talked to the landscape architect involved, and I think it's good work. So I'm anxious to see where we go with that. The Arts Commission meeting, as we've seen tonight in the presentation, it's been a lot of time talking about the work underway, and I think there is a lot of excitement about the new staff person that will be assigned to help with their work. And I think as Alex mentioned earlier, Josephine Camarillo has done a really terrific job as the liaison. But I think she's going to be her load will be a little lighter with this new person coming on. I think she'll spend more time with her library and other events. And then let's see. And then I attended, I got an invitation, an email, and it was a White House teleconference or something, a call, and it was a Rural Partners Network through USDA. I was curious about it because I don't really know if Ellensburg qualifies as rural, but I was kind of curious about it. So this is a new program that's rolled out this year at the federal level. And it involves, right now, there are 17 communities in 11 states that are able to access funding for economic development. And this is really new. There are some western states, some southern states, they're kind of all over, but to my knowledge, no one in Washington. So I wanted to at least learn about it a little bit. I don't know if it's sort of a project by project, city or community, county by county approach, but I was intending to reach out to our congressional delegation to find out if Washington is on the radar or something like this. And then probably the highlight of my week was I was able to attend the Ellensburg High School presentation performance of Pride and Prejudice on Saturday, and it was well done. So again, a bit of arts in our community, so always nice to support that. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Monica Miller.
I attended Coffee with Council, with Councilmember Rich Elliott. Remember that? Good times.
That was more than 2 weeks ago.
That was interesting. I learned a lot from Councilmember Elliott and enjoyed hearing various questions and concerns from the community. A lot of them are around roads and road repair. That was interesting. And also it was great to spend time in people want to call it Rodeo City Barbecue, but it's now Open table. Yes, to see how that is being used and accessed by the community. Attended Parks and Rec Commission meeting. The big focus for that was around Reed Park. Following that meeting, I also attended the Reed Park community meeting to evaluate the 4 choices, and it was very well attended until Councilmember David Miller got there, apparently, and also attended the World Cafe and enjoyed getting to have just a nice conversation with people that I didn't know. It was really, that was great. Also, Landmarks and Design Commission, where they talked about streeteries and community park. And also some possible training coming up around historic preservation for everyone. And I think that might be coming our way as well, which I think would be great. Last thing I did that I remember was I also attended that Keen event, which was very well attended and very informative.
Member Nguyen.
Very, very short one for me. Didn't have a chance to attend any meetings this last couple of weeks. I have been getting a ton of phone calls from people about the sleep center that we've been talking about. I'll follow up with Heidi with more details on that one going forward. Most of the people that have been calling me are not in favor of the sleep center at all. So I will bring that to Heidi and hopefully have something to share along with you guys shortly out of that one.
Thank you. So I attended a lot of the events that have already been mentioned, and a utility advisory committee meeting, and the got a letter today, the airport advisory committee. The county I'm up for reappointment, and we just did that and appointed me. So I just unless anyone wants this committee now, we will ask the county to reappoint me. Okay, seeing consensus. And I was going to ask if council's interested in joining some of that historic preservation training or doing maybe a study session before the council meeting. So okay, because that is kind of an area of what we do that is not, we don't do it very often, and understanding the nuance of it can be tricky. So, okay. we are ready for our executive session. Do I have to cite this again? Repeat the numbers.
The city manager cited it into the record.
Okay, in the record. So do you guys need 5 minutes before a break? Do you need to break 5 minutes? Well, it's only a 5-minute thing. Yeah. So
5 minutes each. Oh, that's.
All business being done, we are adjourned.
You get the signatures back on the